On today's show, Art Gensler, the Apple Store architect, has died. Will Apple add more nostalgia with new names for their Macs? Plus how older M chips could give us cheaper entry-level Macs in future, and more of your questions iCave answered. This video is supported by NordPass, letting you store all of your passwords in one place. Organise your logins and private notes in a secure password vault and access it all with a single master password. And with NordPass's data breach scanner, you can find out if your online account or credit card information has been leaked. Right now, NordPass has their Spring Forward sale too until June the 1st, 2021, so my audience can get 70% off NordPass at nordpass.com/iCave or use the code iCave. Plus, you'll get an additional month of NordPass for free. Thank you to NordPass for sponsoring this video. I'm iCave Dev and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. But into our first topic, Art Gensler, Apple Store architect, has died at the age of 85. Gensler was responsible for the design of the first 100 Apple stores that opened, and probably has as much to do with the look and feel of Apple's retail locations as Steve Jobs himself. In a 2018 article, Gensler described working on these for 6 months out of a locked, guarded warehouse, only to be later fired when Steve Jobs found out that they'd also worked on Microsoft's own retail stores. Soon after Jobs' death, though, the firm was rehired, and Gensler Studio is currently the largest architecture firm in the world, operating in 50 different countries. Rest in peace, Art. Will Apple add more nostalgia with new names? We've talked a lot in recent days about how Apple is calling back to its older product designs from the early renaissance of Apple design after Steve Jobs returned and hit the product stack with his Simple Stick, bringing back colour and fun to Apple's products, rather than the fairly austere black and aluminium look of Apple's industrial design period. In yesterday's video, I even wondered whether Apple might revisit the iBook name for its colourful new notebook, because, as I've said in the past, Apple's been really inconsistent with what Air means in their range, and it's varied from product line to product line. Talking about iBooks as a possible name for Apple's new entry-level Mac just reminded me of this. iBook really does make sense for an iMac on the go, as Apple used to call their colourful G3 notebooks. iMac has kept its name all the way through, and the i did become pretty iconic for consumer products at Apple. Things like iPod, iPad, iPhone, all the rest of it. And of course, Apple's naming didn't stop there. Everyone's waiting to see what the more serious Pro machines will look like with Apple Silicon, as I know not everybody loves the white bezels, but don't worry about that. I'm sure the new Pros will be way more serious looking. But the name for Apple's desktop towers and high-performance notebooks back in the day was Power Mac and PowerBook. Pretty appropriate names for the kind of performance that we're probably going to be expecting. Though I'm not really confident that Apple will go with these, but I think it would be a really cool way of differentiating these new Macs from the Intel generation. But at the very least, it would be great to just get Apple to decide what Air means to them right now. At the moment, it seems to mean the cheapest MacBook, the mid-tier iPad, wireless when it comes to audio and trackers, and it would have been wireless for AirPower too. I think it needs to be more aligned with the iPad line, and while before I did talk about combining the iPad and the iPad Air just to put a more recent chip in all of them, I think it's now more likely that Apple is going to go for the good, better, best kind of model with iPad and the MacBooks, with the iPad, the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, followed by the MacBook or iBook, MacBook Air and MacBook Pro. Air doesn't, or at least shouldn't, mean cheapest. It started out as a premium ultra-thin and ultra-light notebook, and when it was introduced back in 2008, it was $17.99 with an 80GB hard drive, or you could upgrade to a 64GB SSD, though Steve himself described it on stage as not cheap. I think when we see it upgraded, we'll see the MacBook Air take on the mini LED tech to come to it if there's a MacBook in the range as well, so that can keep the current display technology and reduce costs. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and let's get into your questions.
Yuri Tech asks, iCave answers, will you do an entire Mac collection video?
I would love to. The problem is there isn't a huge amount of space here in the iCave itself. Right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's at least 10 Macs in this room that I can think of straight away. So it's already a little bit crowded for me. So I'm probably not going to bring them all down and do kind of a video, because a lot of them are up in the attic for a good reason. But we might well be we might well be kind of renovating the attic at some point soon, so that would be a really good opportunity. Otherwise, the lighting in there is horrendous. I suppose I could take some lights up. It'll be a bit weird, but maybe I can get something done. No promises for when it's going to be, though.
Swielamac asks, iCave answers personal computers are so powerful these days that they can process large data sets for machine learning, with ML becoming more mainstream. Do you think we could see Apple separating the neural engine from the M1 and place a dedicated DPU, data processing unit, in their Pro Macs in the future?
So the NPU, or the Neural Processing Unit, which is I think what Apple calls it themselves, the neural engine, is probably going to stay a part of the main core. The only thing that I can think where they might do a separate AI kind of neural engine would be the Mac Pros itself, and maybe it will come in the form of something like Afterburner card that they've put into the current Intel ones, where it's an additional card that's like an accelerator specifically for that task. That would make sense to me, and it kind of keeps that modularity to things, but it doesn't over the top kind of separate it off. I don't see why removing it from the M1 or from the SoC will actually make anything faster. It just depends on how many cores you put there. If you can make an SoC that's got all of the stuff on it that you need and the amount of cores that you need, it doesn't matter whether it's further away or right there. In fact, if it's further away, then it's not going to be able to access that unified memory pool, which is going to slow things down. So I don't see Apple moving it off unless it's for the very high-end Mac Pros, and it's purely because they need to be able to just plug in a huge amount of data processing for very high-end Macs and for very specific use cases.
Marcin Kowalczyk at iCave David Eden Sangwell asks, iCave answers, I wonder if Apple will push integration to such an extent in the future that just the act of opening an iDevice outside of Apple-approved circumstances will destroy it?
Okay, no, I don't think we're going to get to that point. I understand people's concerns with the right to repair stuff, and it does sound like Apple has done some shady stuff in the past in terms of like reducing people's access to parts. I think even the approved repairers can only get access to like batteries and displays, but then they are the main kind of things that will need to be serviced most often. So unless you need a whole new back case or something like that, those are really the kind of things that are required. Now, at the moment, Apple is going through a lot of sort of legal challenges to the way that they build their devices, and it's not in terms of things like the M1 where they've put everything into one chip, and so you would have to replace the whole of that or the whole board in order to repair it, but more that they use more that they do make it more difficult for people to get hold of the parts that they would need to repair these things properly. Also things like serial coding the displays to the chips, which means that if you need to replace a display, then you might have issues with the chip. And I think part of that is because you've got your Face ID sensors and things sometimes are built into it, but also for biometrics once we get to having under display Touch ID. And also Touch ID obviously became a part of that front panel when they decided that it should all be a single piece of glass. So there are some things that Apple does that are obviously making it harder for people to repair, but I think the majority of the stuff that Apple does is to make the device better in the first place. So I don't think Apple's going to do some sort of destroy the device when you try and open it. They might just kill your warranty a little bit quicker than they have in the past. But this all depends on how the legal challenges go.
Evan Rogers asks, iCave answers, do you foresee Apple pursuing a similar Mac sales strategy as they have on the iPhone lineup? In other words, keep old M series models and offer steep discounts year over year?
So this is something that we've actually talked about in the past on the channel a lot of times, and I 100% think this is what they're going to do, because Apple doesn't have the capacity to make multiple like binned versions. At the moment, what we've got is we've got the 7-core GPU chips where they've had slight failures in the chips being used in the very base models where the amount of power is probably not as important to the people that want to get the cheapest version. So that's kind of worked for this, but it's nowhere near what Intel or AMD would do. Like Intel's i3s in a lot of cases are they're kind of graded into the most perfect chips that come out of the line would be the i9s, and then i7s, i5s, i3s, depending on how many operational cores they have, that sort of thing. Apple doesn't really have that. They've got just much higher kind of tolerances on their actual manufacturing process. TSMC nails making these chips all the time. So yeah, I think we're not going to see it that way, but I think what is more likely is, as you said, that just like the fact that we can still buy the iPhone 11 for now less money than the iPhone 12 mini, I think that the M1 Mac Mini, for example, might stick around when the M2 arrives. That would make the most sense to me in order to keep the pricing lower. And the same, you know, we've still got the A12 going into the brand new iPads that are still being sold as completely new, as well as the iPad Air that then comes with A14 and the iPad Pros that now have M1 inside. So we have got that kind of lineup already in the iPhones and in the iPads. We just need to now bring that to the Macs too.
Hilso, 5 hours ago edited, how much do you think Apple Glass will be, asks. iCave answers.
So this is a really tricky one because there's been multiple different versions of what Apple Glass will be and what will be the AR headset and what will be the VR headset and things like that. So somewhere between $400 and $3,000. That's not me being funny, but originally I think John Prosser was saying that Apple Glass will come in at around about $400, which is a very, very good price, but that was expecting it to have similar capabilities to an Apple Watch. So I think that's kind of the angle that we were going for there, although it'll have like more AR features to it. Whereas the full-on headset with the twin 8K displays was the one that was being sort of pitched as being $3,000. I think possibly because it needs a lot more processing power built into it, and probably a lot more battery life because of that processing power, because if you need to drive those kind of displays. Now, I've also been given some information that the Apple Glass will have very similar displays built into it, but they'll be reflected, I assume, unless we're going for sort of transparent LED screens, LCD screens. I really don't know what to expect on this anymore, because it seems like every time I say something, there's new information and it changes. But for the basic Apple Glasses, we were told $400. Everyone thought that was way too cheap, but everyone thought that the iPad was way too cheap when that first came out as well. That started at $500, I think, and everyone was expecting it to be $1,000 plus. So Apple is trying to push down the price of their stuff. AirTags, everyone expected to be at least $40, because I think that's what Samsung charges, maybe $50, came out at $29. Like, Apple is surprising us left, right and centre with pricing on stuff, so I just don't know what to expect anymore. But thank you all for your questions. If you've got a question you want me to answer in a future show, all you need to do, down in the comments section, leave your question and I will answer it in the next show. Thanks so much, and we'll see you then.